In this video, we're going to go over some problem solving, in particular linear problem solving, and then we'll look at a couple application word problems. So let's go over first the steps for problem solving. The first step in linear problem solving, or pretty much any problem solving, would be to read the problem first and then list the items that are known and the items that are unknown. You can do this mentally sometimes, or if it helps you, you can physically write out what you know and what you don't know. The second step here will be to assign a variable to one of the unknown items. Most times, x is going to equal the item that is being asked for in the problem. Then you need to translate the other information in the problem to expressions involving the variable. There are some ways that you can organize this data. So after you assign the variable to one of the unknown items, you can put your information into a chart to organize the data. You can draw a picture to help you organize the data. Just find some way to assign the variable and then translate the other information into expressions. Step would be to write an equation using the items and the variable listed in steps 1 and 2 that describe the situation. So you may want to reread the problem and then write the equation with the given information that you have. You'll have expressions from step 2, and you'll use those expressions that involve the variable to set the equation up. Step 4 will be to solve the equation that you set up in step 3. So that's a simple one. All you need to do is solve for the x variable, or if you have a different variable, solve for that specific variable. The last step, step 5, is to write the answer out. Make sure that you fully answer the question and that your final answer makes sense. Sometimes you'll want to make sure that if you're finding a length, that you don't have a negative number, or that your length doesn't exceed what the boundaries are. Or another example would be if you have to take the square root of both sides, that you don't have a negative in your square root. So things like that, just making sure that your answer makes full sense. Now let's go ahead and apply these steps to solving a couple problems. Our first example here says the length of a rectangle is 5 inches less than twice the width. The perimeter is 38 inches. Find the length and width of the rectangle. So the things that we do know is we know that the perimeter is 38 inches, and we know that the length of the rectangle is 5 less than twice the width. So what we need to do is we need to figure out all the known information. How does it relate to find out what we don't know? So in step 1, I'm going to actually list what I know here by drawing a rectangle. There's my rectangle. Okay, so we know we have a rectangle, and we know that the perimeter equals 38. My pen is not wanting to work. Okay, so let's go ahead and do step 2. Step 2 says assign the variable, and we're going to use that variable to help us write an expression. So here, what we don't know is the length and the width. We do know that the length is 5 less than twice the width. So if we let the width be x, then the length is 5 less than twice that x. So we would have 2x, and it's 5 less than that 2x. Okay? So then what we need to do in well, that's all for step 2, is just assigning the variable and then writing an expression with that variable, with the information we know. Now what we can do is step 3, and what we need to do is we need to write an equation. So what is the information that we have, and how does it relate? We have the length now and the width. So we have the length and the width, and we know what the perimeter is. Do we know an equation that relates length width in terms of perimeter? And that would be the perimeter formula. Perimeter is equal to 2 length plus 2 width. So let's set up our equation. 2 length, so 2 times 2x minus 5 plus 2 width equals our perimeter. And we know our perimeter is 38. Okay, so that is what step 3 wants you to do, is just set up your equation. Step 4 would be to actually solve the equation. So I'm going to go through and solve this. Here I've got to distribute that 2 through. So we end up with 4x minus 10 plus 2x equals 38. I've got here 6x minus 10 equals 38. 6x equals 48. So x equals 8. And we have our x solved for. It does not mean we are done with the problem, but we do have what x equals. So now we're going to go back to, or go to step 5, which says, actually write out your answer. So we know that x is 8 here, but what does x represent? Well, if you remember, x was the width. So we know that our width is 8 inches. And then we actually aren't just trying to find the width. The problem says find the length and the width. So we know the width is 8. Go back to your original problem here where you wrote out the information, and you know that if the width is x, the length is 2x minus 5. So the length would be 2 times 8 minus 5. Whoops, on the outside there. So 16 minus 5, then we know the length is 11 inches. Okay, and that should be our final answer. We need to just go back and make sure that makes sense. We don't have a negative length or width, so that is good. And then also, if you take 8 plus 8 plus 11 plus 11, you want to make sure that that adds up to 38, which it does. And you have your final answer there solved for. Make sure, double check, you have your length and your width, and that's what you're looking for. So we're good. Let's look at one more example. The last example here, example 2, is an example of using percentages. So the selling price for a TV is $585. If the markup is 25% of the dealer's cost, what is the dealer's cost of the TV? So what we know is the final price for the TV is $585, and we know that they also have to mark up the dealer price 25% to get to that $584. And then the question is asking us to find the dealer's cost of the TV. So since they're asking us to find the dealer's cost of the TV, let's call that X. So X is going to be the dealer cost. Okay. The next thing we need to do is let's write an expression for what the dealer's cost would be of the TV. Okay? Well, or not the dealer's cost. Let's write an expression for what the cost of the sale price of the TV is going to be. Because we already know the dealer's cost is X. So if we start with X amount, that's the dealer's cost, and we mark that up 25%, that means we are going to add 25% to the dealer cost. So we're going to go 0.25, let's see, 0.25x. So we have X, which is the dealer cost, plus 25x, 25% of the dealer cost. That is our expression for the sale price. Well, we know that the sale price is going to be equal to $584. Okay, so now we had our expression. Our expression was right here, and we know that that expression is what the selling price of the TV equals, which we have in the problem as 584. So now we just actually have the equation, and we need to solve for it. So we're going to go 1.25x is going to equal 584. Okay, so we just divide both sides by 1.25. And you may want to use a calculator for that. I don't have a calculator in my reach. So if I said 525, I can rewrite that as 5/4 because if I have 5/4, 5/4 equals $1.25. So I just wrote that as a fraction. And so I could multiply both sides by 4/5. There, and let's simplify that. Alright, so I already did that math, so I multiplied 584 by 4, and then I divided it by 5, and I got x equals 467.2. So that means here, I'm going to write my final answer up here, that the dealer cost was $467.20. And there is my final answer. Sorry, that's not very neat, but there you have it. So that one actually, even though you can't draw a picture for it, the math isn't as difficult.